15 nasty things celebs have been caught doing. Many of these persons have had, or are now having, very successful careers in movies, music, sports, and other celebrity-related activities. Celebrities appear to have divine rights, sitting atop our media culture's throne. Politics and capitalism are put to the side in order to make way for those fantastic celebrities who tantalize our eyes, gossip, and shock. But are they as flawless as some news outlets claim? Our response: no way. And to demonstrate the flaws in their immaculate images, we've assembled a list of the worst, nastiest gaffes these gods and goddesses have committed. These are the heinous truths that celebrities tried to conceal yet were eventually discovered doing. And the startling part: many of these persons have had, or are now having, very successful careers in movies, music, sports, and other celebrity-related activities. Continue reading to learn about the ugly truths about your favorite folks. Expect some of your favorites to appear on this list. We're sure you've heard about some of these. Number 15, Casey Affleck. Casey Affleck is fresh off the Oscars stage. While his abuses and harassments had previously been referenced in brief footnotes in interviews, it wasn't until recently that his acts were truly identified and examined. The ladies who worked on his film, I'm Still Here, came forward with accusations about incessant physical advances, improper name-calling, and Affleck encouraging crew members to expose themselves in front of the women. Furthermore, as the ladies on set began to defend themselves and speak out against the harassment, Affleck became more aggressive and insulting, eventually becoming verbally abusive and unprofessional, for example, not upholding promises of their contracts. He got worse and worse no matter what they tried, until the project finished and the women sued him. He reached an agreement during mediation, but it does not imply the actions have ended. His behavior of his working counterparts was unpleasant, disgusting, and inappropriate in our opinion. We hope he receives help and that no one else is put in the same situation. Number 14, Mark Wahlberg. Racism is his game, but it extends beyond stupid jokes and prejudice. Mark Wahlberg was a horrifyingly violent young guy who was repeatedly caught acting violently toward persons of color. He not only flung rocks at a group of African-American schoolchildren while they were on a field trip while he was in his early adolescence. A year later, at the age of 16, he was arrested beating up two Vietnamese American men while they were wandering around. While these two men were different incidents, they were both motivated by Wahlberg's vile hatred for all people of color. He was also hurling racial obscenities and making violent threats at these individuals as he assaulted them, leaving them for dead before being apprehended and arrested. We're delighted he served time, but we're also disappointed that he clung to his celebrity. Number 13, Rick James. Kidnapping and torturing are slightly worse than any other sort of attack. In terms of men abusing women, this list is replete with examples of heinous characters in the entertainment industry. Who, though, takes the cake? Rick James is a musician. This iconic R&B singer was instrumental in the modern development of funk, frequently working as a singer, songwriter as well as behind the scenes with singers such as The Temptations and Tina Marie. How could someone who provided so much delight cause such anguish? Substances that are illegal. He lost himself and his notoriety after succumbing to a drug addiction. He kidnapped and tortured two ladies while under the influence of a specific white chemical, one for 20 hours and the other for 12 hours. Not only is it disgusting, but it is also frightening. We're delighted no one has forgotten about this, even if his work before addiction is still worth hearing. Number 12, Matthew Broderick. Did anyone hear about this heinous crime? Bueller. That's what we assumed. While this occurred a few years ago, it is still worth highlighting because it is so shocking. Many of us grew up idolizing Ferris Bueller, wishing to be like him and creating complex schemes to avoid school, when we hit high school. Matthew Broderick, however, is not Ferris Bueller. The character we know and love and the actor who plays him are two distinct entities. While Ferris never did anything particularly heinous, Broderick did. Matthew Broderick was traveling one day in Northern Ireland when he was suddenly involved in a car accident. While we don't know if he was the cause of the crash or was just caught in the middle of it, 2 ladies died as a result of it. Broderick was fined little less than $200, and the incident was never discussed again. What a scumbag. Number 11, Sean Penn. This oddball with the strange mustache is capable of horrendous abuse. When he was working with Madonna, he was already being tried for assaulting a film extra. While we don't know if the incident was instigated or unprovoked, it's always unpleasant when someone in power physically hits someone else. It does not give a positive message as a mentor or inspiration, and it frequently leads to further harmful actions. Sean Penn went from punching a film extra to putting Madonna in the hospital in this instance. Why? He smacked her in the head with a baseball bat. This amount of abuse is not excused or forgiven by any level of repentance. We're delighted he was charged with only 1 assault, but we're disappointed Madonna never charged him. Despite the fact that this happened in 1987, Sean Penn has done some humanitarian work since then. We're very sure she won't charge him because of how long ago that was and his subsequent acts. That's a little nefarious in and of itself. Number 10, Johnny Cash. Only Johnny Cash could pull off anything like this. It not only involves a ring of fire, but it also involves a symbol of America nearly being destroyed. So, what exactly happened? While traveling one day, his truck began to overheat. He continued driving, pushing the vehicle just as hard as he pushed himself. He was eventually compelled to pull over when the entire thing caught fire. Did he dial 911, the fire department, or AAA? Nope. He decided to step back and let nature take its course. Unfortunately, nature was unable to cope. His truck ended up destroying a large piece of the forest next to which he was halted, and with the trees went half of the entire population of California condors. Because of Mr. Johnny Cash, this bird species is now on the edge of extinction. What was his punishment? A fine of less than $100,000, as well as the guilt of numerous bird souls on his conscience. What a calamitous mishap. Number 9, Chris Brown. You must have been living under a rock if you haven't heard about what Chris Brown did to Rihanna. Seriously, that was one of the craziest celebrity-related incidents. Rihanna is a powerful, vocal woman, so when she speaks out about something, you should pay attention. It's probably significant, and it's probably a problem that affects more than just her. This is true in this scenario, where Chris Brown was discovered domestically abusing Rihanna, causing a media sensation and a lot of backlash for him. However, it was insufficient for all of his fans to abandon him. Chris Brown went on to create another album and is still active today. People appear to forget more as time passes, which is unfortunate. Domestic abuse should never be forgiven or forgotten, which is why we have included him on our list. Number 8, Mike Tyson. What is it with the media and people that exploit others without their knowledge? Assault, harassment, and non-consensual survivors are continually dealing with the emotional, social, and physical healing effects of their traumas, while the perpetrators frequently walk free. Worse yet, they become media darlings and household names. Fighter Mike Tyson is one of these persons, having been convicted of physically abusing people without their consent and receiving a 3-year term. On top of his short prison sentence and thriving post-conviction career, he had Trump, the current president, on his side. What a scumbag. We despise the fact that this heavyweight champion has been so successful despite having to pay for his wrongdoing. The only thing we can do is make certain that we do not forget and that the conviction does not become a footnote, like so many other assault cases. This is the absolute worst. Number 7, Rebecca Gayheart. What is it that makes everyone sick to their stomach, regardless of whether they have a heart, empathy, or care about anything? Children who have died. While they are frequently the result of horror films and disturbing stories, they also occur in real life. It's more terrifying and certainly more disturbing when they're real kids dying. This is presumably why Rebecca Gayheart is still unhappy about it. She accidentally ran over a toddler in Los Angeles in 2001. The young boy was crossing the street outside of school when her truck struck him and killed him. Because of the issues, Gayheart paid for the funeral and reached an out-of-court settlement with the family. This is more heinous because she has a family of her own. We can't imagine how horrible she must feel, but we also know that accidents happen. There's no doubt it was an accident, but it's still exceptionally heinous. Number 6, Elvis, the king of rock and roll, has gone down in history as one of the most influential and well-known singers of all time. He, like many celebrities nowadays, had a fascination for younger ladies. And by young, we mean young. His ex-wife, Priscilla, was 14 when they met and began dating, which makes hearing about the young teenage girls he dated following their divorce all the more frightening. Imagine the age differences when he was dating even younger girls if he was already older when they met. But do you want to know the worst part? He had a moniker for them. Do you know what he means when he mentions cherries in his songs or interviews? If you said very young teenage girls, you were correct. A cherry was his current incredibly young squeeze. Gives a whole new and horrible meaning to cracking a cherry, eh? Number 5, Channing Tatum. This Magic Mike hero appears to be a wonder boy of the ex-entertainer sort. And, while he hasn't done something as heinous as some of the others on this list, he has a dark past. He was a young actor attempting to earn reputation and make a name for himself. When you're working with other aspiring actors, you believe that bonding is the best method to achieve this. Isn't it true that the more affiliations you have in the world, the more job you'll get? Tatum opted to form a friendship with Shia LaBeouf, who led them on a crazy ride. Fighting, vandalizing stores, and kicking in windows were all part of Tatum's wonderful night with LaBeouf, until they woke up the next day and realized they were being really foolish and terribly disrespectful. Destruction of public property isn't as awful as kidnapping, violence, or the use of illegal drugs, but it's still a bad way to bond. And from such a kind person. Number 4, Tim Allen. Actors may live adventurous life filled of travel and mystery, but they rarely include transporting illegal substances and dealing with the authorities. Allen became involved in this type of trafficking and was arrested in 1978 for attempting to take 650 grams of the white stuff. For those who don't know, 650 grams of this material cost $180,700 US in 1990. You can only think how much more it would be worth 10 years ago. That's a ridiculously large amount of the chemical. And it's also quite harmful. This chemical is the beginning of many horrible addictions that can lead to death. Tim Allen was actively involved in promoting this to more people and would have been well compensated. He was sentenced to life in prison but only served a few years before being released and going on to create great animations and TV shows. Perhaps not as heinous as some of the other things we've heard about, but still rather frightening. Number 3, Justin Bieber. Bieber has been a horrible character since he became famous. He went from being a lovely Canadian youngster who posted fun musical covers online to a racist joking, dreadlocked young adult that most of us despise. We're going to pin him for one action, because we have to pin him on this list stealing his friend's automobile. While it wasn't as innocent as it sounds, this is the crux of the issue. Part of the problem is that he was driving without a valid license and speeding down major metropolitan streets. It wasn't even with his own vehicle. He was behaving badly toward public property, private property, and individuals he cared about. And that isn't going to change. While we hope he received his just desserts, we wouldn't be surprised if he was still doing it. Nasty. Number 2, Johnny Depp. Depp has portrayed some unpleasant characters, but he is also a nasty guy. Not to mention how he has refused to accept responsibility for whatever he has done in recent years. His treatment of Amber Heard, his ex-wife, is particularly heinous, not only physically but also emotionally cruel. He returned home drunk one night and hurled a phone at her face, insulting her, and behaved violently and rudely towards her despite her asking for help. It wasn't until a neighbor entered the flat that Depp stopped striking Amber Heard and instead damaged their belongings before fleeing. We no longer trust Depp, and for good reason. This heinous crime makes our stomachs turn, and we wish more people had spoken up about it when it happened. These two, like Chris Brown, have done such a heinous act that it is difficult to forget. Number 1, Sacha Baron Cohen. Many unusual things arise at fashion weeks around the world, with the craziest generally coming from cutting-edge locations such as Milan. But it doesn't imply it'll be a free-for-all fashion show, with everyone leaping up on stage as if they own the lace. Sacha Baron Cohen, on the other hand, has disrupted official events twice, the most heinous being at Milan Fashion Week. In the middle of a famous designer's runway show, he chose to, allegedly, film a scene for a forthcoming film. He wore a blonde wig and a Velcro suit covered in strange objects. He leaped onto the runway and strutted his stuff down the catwalk before being hauled off by cops. The disregard for the designer and performance, not to mention the safety issues, was massive and quite unpleasant. While not particularly violent, Sacha Baron Cohen deserves to be included on this list.